In today's video, I wanted to give you guys some tips or advice on how to come up with ideas for your Minecraft Forever world. Or I guess another way to put it is how to come up with ideas for a long-term Minecraft world. So I want to start off by giving you guys the most helpful tip I can, and that is to just start building something. So for me, it's a lot easier for me to personally build something rather than to kind of try and brainstorm ideas. And what I mean by that is I feel like the more you build, and just even if you build something very random, you can come up with more and more ideas. Like for example, in this build here, I just kind of built these crypts, and then I had the idea, oh, maybe I should build catacombs to go along with it. And throughout this world, there's tons and tons of just random little pathways that I started making because I didn't necessarily have an idea of what I wanted to build. So yeah, that's my first piece of advice, and I feel like it's the most important, is you just have to start building something just to get that sort of creativity going. It's kind of the same with really anything. Once you have that initial sort of creative momentum going, it becomes a lot easier to start building. Okay, so with that first tip out of the way, I do want to say this video is done live. I don't really have notes for it or anything, but I really just wanted to start building on my own Forever world. With that being said, this video is mostly unedited, so if you have your own Minecraft world you're playing on, or if you're working on school or art projects, feel free to throw this on in the background. So for now, we're just going to kind of walk around. I do have a plot of land that I want to show you guys where I want to start actually building a house. As long as I've had this world, I've never actually gotten around to building myself a proper home, but today I feel like is a good time to do that. So we'll take the pathway over here. Another tip I want to give you guys is you can kind of build how you're feeling. So this is definitely something, I'm more of an artsy type of person, so I really view Minecraft as an art kind of game, even though it is, you know, just a sandbox game. So I have this really beautiful plot of land here, and I think we can build something kind of nice. But something I've really been experimenting with lately is the idea of building how you feel. So what I mean by that is maybe, you know, build something that kind of reflects the mood that you're in. So, you know, maybe if you're more moody or kind of upset about something, maybe you could build something more dark, maybe like an evil layer, or like something out of black stone, or, you know, just something kind of that fits that sort of vibe. Or maybe if you're in more of like a cheerful mood like I am today, maybe you could build something that's more like fantasy and just kind of, you know, just something that fits your mood. Or maybe even if you're bored, you can build something that's kind of boring, like a farm or something. Just something that really, that means something to you, I think is how you get builds that feel very special. And I'm surprised not more people kind of point this out. It's definitely more of an art kind of trope to paint how you're feeling and really get your feelings out into your art, whether it's painting or music. But I think you can apply that same sort of process to Minecraft. So right now, I'm just going to kind of come through here with little columns. I'm not really going to build this super symmetrically. Normally, whenever I play and build, I tend to be more symmetrical with things, but since I am in more of a creative, free kind of mood, I really just want to build something that reminds me of how I used to build when I was a kid. So we're going to do something kind of big here. But yeah, build how you feel. I feel like that's how you'll get builds that are very interesting to you. Like for example, this kind of really huge tower that I have overlooking my base. I feel like this tower was something that I was kind of in a moody sort of era. So you can see it's mostly made out of like black stone and deep slate and things like that. And then when I was feeling more creative, like weeks later, months later, I decided to add kind of like constellations over it. And this pathway is another example of that. You know, I just started off with a very basic pathway, but then when I was in more of like a fantasy type of mood, I started adding these stars. So I feel like building how you feel is like a really awesome sort of way, and it really makes your world feel more personalized, because now you have feelings associated with what you were building and how you were building. Okay, so let's kind of come over here. Thinking I want to kind of bring this on over here. But yeah, this is going to be kind of a massive house. And I guess another thing too, if you really want to come up with just tons and tons of ideas, is I absolutely love watching kind of like old school Minecraft Let's Play builds, because for me, I feel like those like really old Minecraft builds have just a different type of charm to them that, you know, the new version of Minecraft, I feel like can get kind of lost. So another tip I want to give for finding ideas is don't be afraid to experiment. Like I'm kind of coming in here with I don't really have a plan for this build other than I just want something that's a little bit different, and it's something that's kind of reminiscent of how I would build as a kid. So that's kind of how the approach that I'm going for with this one. I guess I should add a disclaimer. This video is going to be kind of yappy little thing. Another tip I can really give for finding ideas is you definitely, I think experimenting with different styles is really always kind of fun. Try out different resource packs, try out different shaders. Like for example, this is the Excalibur resource pack, and I should have showed this off in the beginning of the video, but I'm using the Solas V2.6 shaders, and if I open up my shader settings here, people always ask me the settings that I use. So if you open up your shader settings and go to post effects, if you come to tonemap config, you can kind of see I have the contrast turned all the way down, and this is what gives my world kind of this more soft sort of look. But if I turn off my shaders entirely, kind of come here, you can see the world has a totally different look and feel, and you know, giving yourself a different perspective on your world, it'll help you kind of come up with ideas. So you can see now the world has this more like original early beta version of the game kind of look and feel, especially with the moody lighting. You can experiment with things like turning off smooth lighting and things. I don't think necessarily having a shader pack is totally necessary for having a world that looks fantastic. There is times where I just feel like not playing with a shader pack. You know, experimenting with different resource packs and things will really give your world that really unique look, and it can give you ideas that maybe you necessarily didn't have. So let me throw on my elytra. I'm like slowly making my way back towards like a cave that I want to start mining in, but we can actually kind of come over here. I'm going to play without shaders just for a little bit, just so you guys can sort of kind of get the feel that I'm going for here. So I do have a bunch of different like audio mod packs and different little ambient things I have installed. So I'll leave all that in the description for you guys if you'd like to check it out. But yeah, as you can see, without shaders, the world just has a more little charm to it. I think this is kind of like a very niche tip, but turning your brightness down to moody, you can sort of see how the game looks now. But if I came in here and I turn this all the way up to bright, you can see it gives the world a totally different sort of look. So I personally prefer moody brightness for most things. I think it gives the game a much more cinematic look. But yeah, feel free to experiment with different, you know, lighting and different resource packs, because it'll really help inspire you. Another thing you can do is turn off smooth lighting. This gives the world more of like a look that you would kind of find in maybe like the beta or alpha versions of the game. And you know, you want to just put yourself in different moods and different kind of like headspaces when you're building. Another really great idea for finding good ideas is listening to music that you really love. You know, depending on the music you're listening to, I feel like it can really affect your mood. Or maybe you're listening to an audio book and they're describing maybe like a scene, and maybe you want to recreate that in your own Minecraft world. So I think you can find inspiration in almost anything and ideas in almost anything. I think it's really important to be patient with yourself, especially, you know, if you're building a long-term world, it's okay to take your time with things. Like I've had this world for a little, either just under 2 years or I've had it for 2 years. I never really figured out what my actual start date is, but it's okay to take your time with things. If you're going to have a world for a long time, you know, don't be afraid to take your time. So let's kind of come down here to my my mine, and we'll kind of grab some cobblestone. It's kind of funny. My main problem in this world is I don't have a ton of cobblestone, because most of the time I'm mining with my silk touch pickaxe. So I do have some here. But yeah, I think the texture pack you choose to use has a huge impact on how your builds look and how your world feels. So you should always kind of experiment with different things. And really go for a theme. I don't think worlds necessarily need themes. I think you can just kind of build how you feel and build what you want. So down here in this cave is another example of, I was more of a, if you kind of come through here, I was more into like a fantasy kind of vibe. So I really wanted to build something that kind of gave off that like cozy fantasy sort of look. So you can see I added like cherry trees in down here. This actually area looks really cool without shaders. Okay, let me turn them back on. I think most people prefer my videos with shaders on. You can kind of see everything has like a nice bloom to it. It looks really artsy and fun, and you know, this is just something I built when I was in that artsy, fun sort of mood. And then if you kind of come over here, the storage room is built purely out of just something that I needed for function. And I guess another thing too is having like a specific goal in mind. Are you more of a like functional builder? Are you somebody who's more like aesthetic focused? I think there's for me, I'm definitely more of an aesthetics sort of builder. I don't really build a lot of things for function. Like this world doesn't have any sort of automated farms or anything like that. I have very basic kind of farms like my mob farm and things like that. But as far as like automatic iron and all those things, I don't really have anything like that. So, you know, just figure out what type of player you are, what kind of builds really, you know, excite you to build. I think having something that's exciting to build is very important, especially the longer you play. And I've definitely mentioned this in a previous video, but being okay with taking breaks, I think is also very important. It can be kind of discouraging when you see like a long-term Minecraft world on YouTube and you see this sort of finished project and you might feel like, oh, I need to really build something super fast and, you know, but you have to understand that Minecraft worlds take time and it's okay to take a break if you don't feel motivated to play. I feel like Minecraft really should be just this creative thing that you can enjoy and play. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be something that's so serious. So I'm just gonna grab a bunch of cobblestone because this house is gonna need a lot of it. But yeah, figure out what type of style really inspires you. For me, and you know what, your style is gonna change over time and that's okay too. I don't think it's necessary to have a consistent theme in your world unless that's something that you really want. If you want that consistent look, that's okay too. But I'm definitely in this school of thought that you can kind of just do what you want. I think that's why I like watching creative world tours, because there's so many different building styles and people feel more free to kind of experiment with what styles they like. And I think it's important to figure out like what inspires you to build. That will just give you tons of ideas. I think if you're more of a functional builder, like there's so many tutorials on YouTube on how to build different farms and things. So I think looking to YouTube is a fantastic way to kind of come up with ideas, just because there's so many amazing kind of builders out there. I will say though, as far as watching video tutorials, sometimes, at least for me, I feel like it can be kind of discouraging to watch a lot of tutorials because there's so many YouTubers and content creators out there that are just absolute amazing at Minecraft, and it can be kind of daunting almost to feel like you have to compete with their sort of style of building and things. So I think as far as coming up with a style, you want to just, it's okay to watch YouTube videos, it's okay to watch people showcase their worlds and things, and it's good to take ideas from that, but you don't necessarily have to copy their style. For me, it took me a little while before I kind of developed this sort of theme that I have in this world. Like when I first started this world, I didn't have any real building skill or idea, but over time I just sort of developed a style. And to touch on that point that I mentioned earlier in the video about just building anything, I think, you know, the more you build, the more you'll just kind of come up with ideas. That's personally what I feel like. So let's kind of elytra down here and I can showcase a little bit more of this world. You can kind of see my constellation over the base there. Another idea that I really want to give you guys is in one of my comments, I forget how they worded it, but it was more or less this idea that I was really good at decorating a world. So I feel like finding your kind of style is really important. So for me, I'm more of a decorator rather than like a builder. I feel like the only thing I've really built on this world that was like original and was really cool was this kind of tower and the constellation above it. But I really am more of a decorator. So like these pathways, I feel like they're pretty well decorated and things, and you kind of see I added sort of these like little stars around the pathway just because I thought it'd be kind of cool and unique. Oh, and if you are wondering about these, I've gotten comments about it. This is just tinted glass, and I have amethyst shards on either side of it. And I think these look fantastic. Just something kind of interesting. Oh, there's actually a wandering trader over here, which is kind of interesting. I think, unless this is just a rogue llama. Hi, baby. But yeah, I think I really want to just build something kind of old school. For me, I love watching world tours of like the beta versions of the game. Okay, let's kind of come in here. Kind of build this out a little bit. I'm just going to kind of outline this. This house is sort of a weird shape, but I kind of like it. I kind of like how funky and asymmetrical it is. I think being okay with builds not being what people consider good is a good place to be. YouTube is good for some things, but I feel like for other things it can be kind of discouraging. Like for example, we see so many builds and things that are just absolutely stunning and they look amazing, but sometimes it can be discouraging because we feel like we have to build in that style. And I think if you feel like you have to copy someone's style, it'll really affect how good you can build, I feel like. So don't be afraid to be original. Don't be afraid to build things that aren't up to someone else's standard. Okay, let's kind of come over here. Same sort of thing over here. This is going to be so weird, but I kind of like it. For me, sometimes I used to get a lot of artist block, especially on this world. Like this, this plot of land that I'm kind of on. I've had this world for so long and I really wanted this house that I'm building to be so special that I would just overthink it. So I think it's okay to plan your builds out, but sometimes it's better to just build and figure it out later. So don't be afraid to kind of experiment with different kind of ideas and things. So we can actually get rid of this, actually, this kind of middle column. I'm sort of using these, what are these called? Stone bricks as sort of corner blocks. Just to kind of, and then I'm gonna fill it in with cobblestone. Let's see, yeah, I think this looks pretty cool so far. Kind of a different, wacky little shape here, but I think it'll look good. There's like a term for this. It's called paralysis by analysis, where you spend so much time trying to formulate a plan, and it can kind of really kill creativity. It kills progress in general, but creativity especially. You really want to try and, this is more, this advice is kind of out there, but you really want to try and get yourself in just a creative sort of headspace. So do things that make you feel creative, like journal, maybe draw. I know I'm always so jealous of people who can actually draw. So if you're a good artist, I feel like that's such a fantastic way to come up with ideas. All right, let's kind of bring this over here. Listen to your favorite music. Like for me, I think listening to like the right song can really help get you in that mood of being creative and building things. Let's kind of go out here. I kind of want to make this spot a little bit stick out a little bit more. Being patient with yourself, giving yourself time to develop a style and things. I think that's really important. And most importantly is patience and taking action towards your builds. I think that's how you're gonna come up with the most ideas. Okay, let's kind of come over here, and I'm vaguely thinking about matching it on this side. I don't know though. Part of me likes that it's sort of this weird misshapen sort of house, because my idea, or I kind of have this vision where you kind of come through this gate. Maybe there's like a little pathway that kind of comes through here, and the entrance will be in the middle of the house. But I like this idea of this sort of spot kind of jutting out. I don't know. I think another good way to find ideas is obviously it's good to spend time outside, but if you're going to a new area that maybe you haven't been to in a while, or it's always good to kind of, for me, I love taking photos. So a lot of my ideas kind of come from photography, just things that I've seen when I'm out and about. If you can find ideas that you've found in real life and you can translate them to the game, I feel like that adds something else to your build that, you know, as awesome as the internet is, I feel like it's important to go out and find ideas just out in the wild. Like, you never know. There's so many different interesting buildings, and obviously you can look up online different architecture and stuff, and you never know. You never really know where you're going to find creativity, but I feel like it's important to give yourself as much of an advantage as possible. You know what? Maybe I kind of want to make something jut out a little bit over here. I think we'll do that later though. Maybe I can add more depth or something here. So I'm just gonna kind of fill this in. Thinking a nice big window, especially right here, would be really cool. And then over here, same sort of deal. We can kind of just, I guess this isn't necessarily advice for finding an idea, but this is just a building tip in general. I find that adding depth to your build is really good, how you're going to make things look just special and have that good kind of look. This gatehouse is sort of a good example of using depth to create a build that looks better. So you can kind of see here on these windows, instead of this wall being totally flat, I decided to use these upside down stairs to kind of give the window like more of a sunken in kind of look, and it makes the build look more lively. That's just kind of a random little tip. This tower over here is kind of another example of something that I built sort of randomly. I had the idea for this to be a gatehouse, obviously, and I kind of just did a 7x7 and a 5x5 square over here. And I was going to originally have both the towers be the same, but what I decided to do was, while I was kind of building here, I had this idea that I really just wanted to have this tower be more of an overgrown kind of look. And I think that's not something I would have thought of if I hadn't just started building. The thing with Minecraft is like, it can be kind of frustrating to have to build something and then dismantle it and change it up, but sometimes that's sometimes what you have to do. So don't be afraid to change up your builds as well. Like, just because you build something doesn't mean it has to stay that way. I think being flexible in what you build and how you build is always kind of nice. And even this, I'm kind of coming in here and I feel like having these corners be a little bit bigger with these stone slabs is just going to give that like a better kind of look to things. So I have mentioned it before, but using different resource packs will really kind of inspire you to build differently. And I feel like using the Excalibur texture pack, I've always really loved medieval kind of look to things. But if I was playing on this world on a different kind of texture pack, maybe something more like old school or nostalgic, or maybe even if I come here and I turn on Quadrille, for example, it gives the world a totally different look, and the way I would build the house would be totally different, you know. So I think finding a pack that really inspires you to build, it'll help you like kind of develop a style. So you can see this pathway looks roughly the same, but it looks totally different. It has just more of a light, nostalgic kind of vibe to it. So yeah, finding that pack that really resonates with you and really kind of fits your style, I feel like is important. It's a simple tip, but I think it drastically changes how you'll choose to build things. So as you can see, it has this more of like a fantasy kind of look. And I think building a world that's centered around a specific texture pack or a specific shader, I think that's how you'll come up with really unique and cool ideas, is if you do something like that. Let's kind of come in here and fill these corners in a little bit better. You know what's kind of interesting is when I was originally going to build this house, I was going to build it out of bricks, because bricks was like it's such an old school kind of block that you don't see a lot of people use. But I've decided I'm just gonna do it out of stone, and maybe we can use that brick for something else. Another thing I tend to do is I like to build, I just sort of see what blocks I have available. I don't really, it's hard for me to kind of mentally figure out what blocks to use for different things. So I kind of just see what, I have chests just filled with blocks everywhere. And I just kind of build with what I have, and I just sort of adapt my kind of style to that. Okay, so we have a nice little outline. I really like this. This is actually so cool. And we can definitely do like maybe an island in here, like kind of as if you have like a wraparound sort of driveway sort of look. So I really want to do maybe some sort of tree in here. Another thing you can really try is giving yourself perspective. So I have a mod called free cam. So if I hit my keybind for that, you can kind of float around out of body. And this will really, you don't necessarily need free cam, especially if you're on console or anything like that. But stepping back and giving yourself perspective will really help you come up with ideas, because for me, it's easier to come up with ideas when I have that perspective on a build rather than just like being super close, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of fill this in. But yeah, be patient with yourself. I think it's very common to sort of have creative kind of block, especially if you play a lot of Minecraft. But that's okay. It's okay to kind of have that block sort of feeling. Let's see. Let's do 3 between each of these. And something like that, I don't know. Just something kind of different. Give it more of this depth kind of look. I think that looks way better than it being flat, despite it being kind of mixed matched and uneven. Actually, let's get rid of this middle part. So I'm kind of cutting this in after the fact because I realized I did not mention it. But I think another idea, or another way to find ideas, is bring elements from your real life into your Minecraft world. So for example, the constellation above my base is actually like part of my zodiac sign. I brought like my real life dogs into the Minecraft world. So I think having like personalized elements from like your real life, really, it's a good way to kind of come up with more unique ideas, and it gives your world more of a personalized kind of feel. As good as it is to have like ideas that come to you easily, sometimes I feel like this is sort of a weird niche kind of tip, but I feel like it's okay to force creativity sometimes. If you are in a block and you really are just dead set on building something, I think it's okay to force creativity. That might not be like the right thing to say, but if you're dead set on building something, it's okay to force that sort of creative kind of feel. And the way I do that is literally just building random things. So for example, like literally a prime example in this world is these pathways. Most of them I built them without ever really having a plan for it. Like this gatehouse wasn't here when I started this sort of pathway. But giving yourself random little projects is always, that's like a sure way to come up with ideas, because you'll just kind of spend more time in your world. You know, these sort of pathways here, like this is an empty space that I might be able to use for something. I think just like the more time you spend building, the more creative you'll kind of get. And I feel like the longer you play it, like the longer of a Minecraft session you have, the more just kind of relaxed and creative you'll start feeling. So yeah, I have just tons and tons of pathways and random little builds that I just started building because I was really, you know, wanting to come up with an idea. Okay, so how do I want to do this part here? I have to kind of mentally sort of figure out what the center is. So another thing I kind of want to point out is don't be afraid to like leave projects unfinished. This is such a weird tip, but sometimes if you're really kind of stuck on a build or an idea and you just aren't sure what to do, I think like, you know, you should feel more than welcome to take a break from that build. And I think a good way to kind of demonstrate this is if I come over here, this world has tons and tons of just unfinished projects that I've never finished, never did anything with, but I feel like that's okay. It's okay to have a world that's just filled with unfinished things. So if we kind of come through here, I absolutely adore kind of how these cherry trees like frame out this kind of pathway. But if we come through here, you can kind of see I just have this huge empty room that literally there's nothing in here. And you know, over time your world is going to kind of change because you as a person will just naturally change over time. But originally this part of my world, if I hop in free cam here, this was this flat land here was just going to be like a house for me that overlooked the village, and I had this whole plan for it. And then I scrapped the house idea and I was like, oh, you know what, since I have this flat kind of land, it'd be so cool to come in here with tinted glass and kind of enclose this space with glass. And I added kind of cherry trees around and things like that. You know, this is just an unfinished room. I consider it unfinished, but this room has literally been like this for a year, so that's okay. It's okay to have an unfinished big old room in the middle of your base. I don't think you have to finish a build right away. Sometimes it's good to just come back and take a break and come back when you have like a fresh kind of perspective, because the last thing you really want to do is burn yourself out on a Minecraft world. That's why I'm such an advocate for taking breaks and being like patient with yourself. If we come over here, this is another example of a thing that's just kind of unfinished. It's just this huge kind of flat space that I have here. This originally was going to be kind of another house that I had an idea for, but never ended up doing anything with, so now it's just kind of flat. But I'm a big fan of taking breaks just in general, because I think at the end of the day, Minecraft is, I've always viewed it as kind of this like artistic kind of expression, even though it is just a video game. But you know, I like to take the approach of treating Minecraft as if it is an art project, and you know, having the same sort of mindset with it. So yeah, taking break from kind of a longer term build will give you, you know, you might come up with better ideas than what you originally planned, and it'll give you kind of space to just breathe and come back with a more fresh kind of mind when it comes to things like that. This is such a random tip, but I feel like sharing your world with people is like a really fun way to come up with ideas. So this is gonna sound so dumb, but sometimes I love to just share my builds with, like, when I was a kid, I used to love sharing like the houses I built with like my mom or my dad or someone in my family, and they would think it's so cool. So, you know, I don't know, depending on the situation you're in, you could always share your kind of builds and ideas with your friends and get their kind of feedback on things. And if you don't like their feedback, you don't have to use it. But I think we can be so hard on ourselves when it comes to our own kind of worlds. I know for me, I'm definitely more hard on myself about like the quality of like a build that I do. But if you have a friend look at it, it's like a fresh perspective, and it might help you kind of appreciate what you've built. And you never know, they might have like feedback for you that they're like, hey, you could probably change this out. So the way I kind of think about it is like, if you're a musician, you'll have like studio engineers and things that will kind of like, or producers, and where their whole job is to literally just like come up with better ideas for you and how to kind of tweak what you have. So I think that's a kind of a weird way to come up with ideas, but it does help. So I think being, you know, sharing your kind of builds with people is a fantastic way to come up with ideas. Another tip, I've definitely mentioned this in a previous video, but kind of having a journal. It sounds cheesy, but having a journal with you or having notes on your phone, I think for me, I get so many ideas throughout the day when I'm just going through day-to-day things, whether I'm like working out or I'm just out and about visiting friends, whatever I'm doing. So it's good to have like quick access to like some sort of way to write down your thoughts, because I feel like ideas come and go so quickly that it's just kind of nice to write things down, and then maybe at the end of the day you come back and look at what ideas you had. So let's kind of frame this out, because there's been ideas that I've written down that I totally forgot about, like even like by the end of the day. So I think it's important to keep those things written down, and writing down your ideas is very important. Just in general, not even just for Minecraft. This is life advice. You guys clicked for Minecraft advice. This is life advice. So this house is coming together a lot better than I thought it would. This is definitely something I'm going to take a lot of time on, but you know, I think sometimes just building without a plan is that's always my go-to when it comes to coming up with ideas. Okay, so I have this sort of long sort of stretch through the middle. Maybe I could do a really tall window on this side and a tall window on that side, just so there's like this really long kind of corridor. And I might make this window bigger or smaller. I don't know, it's kind of what I feel like doing right now. When I was a kid, I loved just putting windows absolutely everywhere, so I'm kind of doing a little bit of a callback to that sort of style of building. Just more of a free, laid back, kind of relaxed kind of approach to things. But yeah, I think the mindset you're in really affects the style of building that you're doing and the ideas you can kind of come up with. And like I was saying earlier, just really, you know, I think building kind of how you feel in the moment is such a fantastic way to come up with unique and very interesting ideas. Because I don't think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people try to force a certain style of building, even if they don't necessarily feel like that. Just in general, I tend to have more of a laid back kind of approach to these sort of things. It's gonna make this a little bit more symmetrical. This is the only downside of having a totally free form kind of build here, is not everything's gonna line up, but that's okay. I think it'll give this build more of a kind of a charm to it. I think kind of getting yourself out of the headspace that everything has to be a certain way, that's a good way to come up with ideas. Like for me, for this world, a lot of my builds are I always follow this kind of formula where I would build maybe these like 5x5 squares or 7x7 squares, and then I would just build up from there. Whereas this build, I'm doing something totally different. I'm just kind of making a shape and just filling it in. So if you're really struggling with ideas, maybe come up with, just build something a little bit different than you normally would. I think that's always a good idea. Kind of coming in here, adding depth to things. Building without a plan, that's always a fantastic way. I think this is how you get builds that are just really unique and really, really stand out. I kind of fill this in here. This house is gonna be so cool. I'm actually really excited that I get to share these kind of moments with you guys. I think that's this is a personal moment. This is my Dear Diary moment. But I feel like the funnest part about making videos is sharing kind of memories with you guys, sharing my thought process behind things. And it's just fun. And I absolutely love hearing your guys' ideas that you have. For me, I always take it so personal when people share their own kind of perspectives, how they like build things, how they come up with ideas. So if you have any of your own kind of tricks that you like to do, feel free to leave it in a comment for me. I love reading them. So you can kind of see we have a nice, cool little shape here. So yeah, I always consider it like the highest kind of compliment when someone shares their own experience with playing Minecraft or their own kind of perspective on things, because everyone has their own unique perspective on how they build things, how they perceive things. Perfect. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I'm gonna come back in here and fill in with all these windows. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love how the sunrise kind of like shine through the trees like that. It's super cool. But let's kind of turn off shaders just for a little bit. Just for a different kind of perspective you can sort of see. Now it has like a much more flat kind of look. And now this build feels like a lot more old school to me, because I remember when I was a kid, I used to play on a laptop. Laptops aren't really that great for gaming, so I would have to always like turn down my render distance and turn down my kind of settings and things. A lot of people really try to go back to sort of how they were when they were a kid and recreate that kind of feeling. That's why I feel like there's so many different mod packs out there for the old versions of Minecraft to kind of give you that nostalgic feeling. So I feel like this is such a weird tip, but playing the game as if you are a kid again will really, it definitely helps you be more creative. Because I feel like as you age as an adult, you kind of lose that creative sort of edge to you. Just because things are so like analytical the older you get. So maybe like turning off shaders, maybe coming in here, turning down your render distance to give everything that kind of like foggy sort of look. You know, might help you kind of get into that same sort of headspace you were in when you were younger and maybe you felt like you were more creative. But I feel like in general, most people are creative and most people do have an artistic kind of side to them. And Minecraft can be such a fun way to kind of bring that out. And it's fun because it's a video game. Okay, so we got another like 3x3 window over here. And just kind of match this up here. Sometimes it's kind of nice to just have a little bit of symmetry going on. And then same with back here, I want to add more windows and stuff. So I think I'm just going to kind of match. Oh, you know what's kind of cool is actually this window lines up perfectly with kind of the moon over there, and you can kind of see the tower through there. This is actually going to be so cool. I'm really, like I said, I'm really excited that you guys are actually like here to kind of see this, and I'm able to really share my experience with you guys. Actually, smooth lighting kind of hit, like smooth lighting turned off kind of hits. I love that. I love just like how blocky the lighting looks. It's so cool. Okay. Okay, hold on. This is supposed to be a tip video, Nick. Now you're really yapping. But yeah, not being so set in your ways is a good life advice in general. It can be really easy to feel like we know everything and we kind of shut ourselves off to like more information, but I feel like we should always be learning in general. In general. And let's do the same thing over here. We'll kind of match the doorway that we have. You know what I was thinking? Maybe we could actually make this doorway. Nah. Maybe we'll have like a back garden here or something like that. I think another thing too is playing different games as well. I know it's supposed to be a Minecraft video, but hear me out on this one. I think sometimes it's okay to play different games. Like for me, I'm a really huge fan of playing like The Sims and stuff. And I feel like a lot of kind of how I came up with a lot of designs was just growing up playing The Sims and decorating things. And I think giving yourself like a limited sort of palette also helps with ideas. Like this house, it's built very simply using just cobblestone and stone bricks and things. And it forces you to really, I think having limitations really does force you to be more creative. So don't be afraid to kind of limit what blocks you use, or, you know, I think a reason so many of the old Minecraft world tours give me such like a cool kind of vibe is because of how limited those games were as far as what kind of blocks you can use. And you can kind of see down here, this is kind of funny. I see this like sewer system that I built kind of poking out there. Eventually I do want to build this house and kind of connect down there somehow. That'd be super cool. This is such a random tip, but I think playing with lighting, experimenting with different lighting always helps. This isn't an idea tip. This is just a general building tip, but you can kind of see if we kind of come down through here. You can see this pathway isn't like the most well-lit thing. And this is just kind of something I learned over time, but leaving like pockets of these sort of darker areas really helps your world stand out more, because it just kind of adds like a nice contrast to things. So experimenting with lighting, everything doesn't have to be totally lit up. That's you know, gives the world kind of a different look. That's a random building tip. Okay, let's kind of come through here again. I absolutely love this. I love kind of like the flow through design. I think this is going to turn out super cool. Like I was saying, maybe we could do kind of come down here and this would be more of like a garden and things. Yeah, I think we have a really cool kind of layout right now. Maybe I'll do a few more windows on this side of the house, just to kind of break it up a little bit. We definitely want this to kind of flow through here. Something like this. And maybe we could do another one. See where this kind of lines up right there. It can be very easy to overdo the windows, but hey, we're doing it. We're gonna overdo it. Kind of fill these in and add depth to everything. I actually really like how like chunky these kind of columns are. That's actually really cool looking. But yeah, even in like this short little time where I have shaders turned off, it's just kind of putting me in a different kind of vibe. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this more like yappy kind of video. And if you guys have any of your own advice, I would love to hear it. I love reading your guys' experience. And for me, I love sharing these kind of memories with you guys and hearing about your experiences. So for me, that's like the highest honor, is reading your, like, when you take time to share your experience with me. If you guys like these longer, like minimally edited, kind of chiller vibe videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel. That's the first time I've asked someone to subscribe to the channel. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this so far. I'll definitely come back and finish this build later. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one.